Welcome to Paranormal Nightfall.
Beneath the bed. Laura's bedroom had always given her an odd feeling. In the day, with the sunlight pouring in through the windows, it was hard to believe there could be anything wrong. But come night, a distinct chill pervaded, making her pull her blanket tight around her, a shield against the cold. Every so often, just as she was about to fall asleep, a breeze would brush against her face, even though her windows remained firmly shut. The family had just moved into this old Victorian house. It was large, with big rooms filled with ornate decorations from a bygone era. While her parents loved its character, Laura found it creepy. Every night she felt like she was being watched. Her parents dismissed her fears as just a child's overactive imagination. One night, Laura lay in bed, her eyes wide open. The wind outside rustled the trees, their limbs casting eerie dancing shadows across the room. That's when she heard a soft, whimpering sob. At first, she dismissed it as the wind. But as she strained her ears, the sound grew louder and clearer. And it seemed to be coming from right under her bed. Summoning every ounce of courage she had, Laura took a deep breath, leaned over, and looked under her bed. The dim glow from her nightlight barely illuminated the space under the bed, casting long, shifting shadows. It was mostly empty, save for a few lost socks and forgotten toys. But there, nestled deep in the corner, Laura saw a pair of eyes. They were large, round, and shimmering like pools of tears. They belonged to a small, translucent figure, curled up and clutching her knees. It was a little girl, no older than Laura herself. She wore an old-fashioned dress, frayed at the edges, with flowing hair. The child slowly raised her head, revealing her face with tears running down her round face. But then the face twisted and transformed into something unimaginable. When it opened its mouth, a piercing scream came from a mouth of sharp teeth. The girl reached out with claw-like hands threatening to grab Laura and pull her into the abyss below. Panicking, Laura screamed, launching herself out of the bed. She bolted down the hallway, screaming for her parents. Moments later, her parents, Jenny and Ryan, roused from sleep, rushed to her side, their faces filled with concern. She told them there was a monster under her bed. They hurriedly entered her room, turning on the light. All looked as it always did, neat and normal. The bed, with its covers tossed aside, stood innocently in the center. Laura's father knelt and peered underneath, not finding any monster, but pulling out Laura's teddy bear. Her mother shot her a reprimanding look, believing it to be another of Laura's childish fears. But she refused to sleep in her room that night, opting instead for the safety of her parents' room. The following night Laura's parents demanded she sleep in her own bed. They agreed to set up an old baby monitor in the room to keep an eye on things. Leaving the light on the bedstand on and the door cracked open, Laura climbed into bed and thrust her head under the covers. Every noise in the room made her twitch. The wind outside. The creaking of the old house. As she was about to doze off, she heard scratching from her closet. Peeking from under the covers, she saw the door slowly creak open. There stood the pale little girl with one of Laura's dolls clutched in her hand. She didn't look scary now. Then, as the apparition saw her, it transformed into the creature under the bed, snarling and scratching at the air with its claws. Laura jumped from the bed and flew to her parents' room sobbing. Her father glanced at the baby monitor screen to see nothing but static. As her parents approached the room, they heard a quiet humming. Peeking in, they saw the little girl sitting on the floor playing with a doll. She looked up, smiled, and transformed into the creature Laura had seen. Slamming the door, they looked at each other and ushered Laura into their room. No one slept that night. Visions of what they had seen swam in their heads. Laura's mom told her dad that she would go to the library the next day, while Laura was in school, to see if there was something to explain the incident. The next morning, when Jenny went to the town's library, After a night of no sleep, she knew she had to find answers. The elderly librarian, Mr. Hawes, with his round glasses perched precariously on his nose, watched as Jenny went deep into the stacks. Jenny pored over old-town newspapers, maps, and dusty records. After several hours she found a faded newspaper clipping. Dated more than 100 years ago, the headline read, "Tragic accident claims life of young girl." A picture of a young girl wearing an old-fashioned dress similar to the one they had seen under her bed accompanied the article. Her name was Eleanor. She had been playing in her bedroom when she accidentally knocked over a lamp, setting the room ablaze. Eleanor was trapped and perished in the fire. The address was theirs. Stunned, Jenny shared her findings with Mr. Hawes, who gasped, "Oh, dear. The Hollister house. We rarely speak of that tragedy. Poor Eleanor's spirit has been rumored to linger, searching for her toys, wanting to play." That night, as Laura lay in her parents' bed, the familiar scratching sound returned. Waking her parents, they crept down the hall. They stopped outside the closed door and heard giggling from within the room. Silently opening the bedroom door, a wave of cold air blew over them. There on the floor was the translucent figure of Eleanor playing with Laura's toys. The room filled with an icy blue glow. When Eleanor looked up, her playful demeanor shifted. Her face turned dark and twisted. Her mouth opened unnaturally large to reveal sharpened fangs and her fingers elongated into claws. A hiss escaped her lips. The toys she was playing with started to levitate around her, spinning faster and faster. The sight left them frozen in place. The toys stopped spinning and flew toward Laura and her parents. Ryan slammed it shut just in time as the thump of the toys hit the door. Jenny and Ryan stood, Laura between them, looking at each other stunned. Laura tugged on their hands and dragged them back to their room. They could hear guttural screams and sound of objects crashing into walls. Laura whispered to them, "We need to go." Her mom rushed to the closet and pulled out 2 suitcases. They threw clothes into the cases, not caring what items they grabbed. Racing down the stairs with the suitcases and Laura in tow, they made it to the car. As Ryan started the vehicle, they looked up at the eerie blue glow coming from Laura's room. Jenny held her daughter tight as Ryan sped away to the safety of a hotel room. The next morning, they ventured back to the house while Laura was in school. They packed both Jenny and Ryan's cars full with everything they could, leaving too much behind. Ryan got on the phone with their real estate agent, who was surprised they wanted to sell so soon. When he said he'd be right over, Ryan told him that they'd meet at his office. Jenny reached out and her mom agreed they could stay with her. The house was listed at a price much lower than its value. But even then, there were no takers. Months went by, and as nature began to reclaim the estate until a developer purchased the house to build apartments on the lot. For Laura and her parents, life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy at Grandma's house. But the scars remained. Laura never spoke of that night, but she often woke up from nightmares, the memory of the deformed child fresh in her mind. The family never looked back. They found a new home built new. They cherished the safety and warmth of their new home. But deep down, they always carried the unsettling knowledge of the darkness that lurked in their former home. As for Eleanor, would she find peace once the house was gone, or would she simply move into one of the new apartments?
If you like this story, press like, subscribe and hit the notification bell, or else.